Hedgehog. Hello and welcome to another episode of Ferret64 with me, your host, YemmytheFerret. Ferret64 is, of course, the one-stop shop for video game news, occurrences, first impressions, and so much more. And we got a juicy one today, folks. The Game Awards nominees were announced. The Golden Joystick Awards are done. And there's a bunch of other stuff to talk about today as well. If you don't know, the YouTube version of the podcast has been improved greatly. I don't think I've said this in a while, but there's a video version now available on YouTube where I have me and I have the news articles popping up. So if you want to check that out, you can swing over to the YouTube version. If you are listening to this on Spotify or any other audio version, I do appreciate that as well. I only ask, hey, if you could rate me out of 5 stars on Spotify, that'd be great. Or leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Maybe even come over to the YouTube version and put a like on the video just to brighten my day. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about the gaming news of the week, and of course we're going to start with the Game Awards stuff. So let's jump into what's in the news. Okay, so the Game Awards, they've announced their nominees. I talk about this stuff every year. I go over the stuff every year, and this year seems a bit funky to me. And maybe it's because of the whole, and like I talked about last week where they did the update. They were like, hey, DLCs and updates and season passes or whatever, seasons of content can't be up for Game of the Year. And I was like, oh, that definitely means that they're putting Shadow of the Erdtree on the Game of the Year list. And like, I'm not like super crazy about that. I mean, I understand why they would do something like that, but it's one of those things where it's like, you probably shouldn't. Because as you all probably know, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree is right now a pretty big controversy surrounding the Game Awards this year, and of course it is nominated for Game of the Year and other categories, as we'll talk about in a minute. But let's just talk about the Game of the Year games, and I'll get into the other things that I touched on during my stream of blindly reacting to these things. Obviously, I don't think I'm going to be able to get very heated with that stuff. Also, welcome back, Pepe. I just realized that he really does look like he's he's ready to start talking into the mic here. Well, yeah, let's just talk about the Game of the Year, like the awards. So right now, just like any other year, there's 5 or 6? There's 6, which is I think a good number of games, and the palette of games is nice. I think that there's a couple of really unique ones on here. There's a couple of outliers. There's a couple, there's those bombastic AAA games, and there's actually 2 indie games on this year's awards as well. And unlike last year, which the Game of the Year seemed pretty obvious, Baldur's Gate 3, this year it is a bit up in the air in my mind personally. Now, I will give you like my who do I think is going to win each category, and maybe who I want to win each category, but we'll get there when we get there. So let's start off. The first one is Astro Bot. This is, of course, coming from Team Asobi, published by Sony, of course. And this is one that I 100% agree with. I agree with them putting this one up for Game of the Year. Not only does it have amazing graphics, great gameplay, great music, but it's also got tons of fresh ideas. Every level is different. There's so much going on in this game. Also, it is a bit of a love letter to gaming as a whole, not only just the PlayStation consoles, but the games that once upon a time lived on those consoles, but now have expanded to other reaches. It's been really awesome to see all the different references in the game, and then also see the new stuff that they've been putting in as the DLC, or not the DLC, but the free courses have been dropping in. So I do 100% agree, Astrobot definitely deserves to be on this list. I could see it winning personally. I think that it is that good, and of course Jeff Keighley has been posting about it a lot. So a lot of times when he's been posting about something, or something has been living on his social media feeds, it kind of feels like the momentum there is going towards Astrobot. But we'll see what happens. The next game is Balatro, which comes from Local Thunk and PlayStack, and this is a game that came out earlier in the year. I've talked about it multiple times now. I talked about it when it originally came out, and then I kind of did like an updated conversation. It was like a couple weeks ago at this point where I booted back up the game and played it a bunch more, and so I talked about it a bit more. And yeah, I mean, I do agree that this is one of the best games of the year. Like, it's definitely worth this nomination. I think that they obviously took the game of poker and they just kind of built on that idea without actually having a gambling element, and they made it into a deck builder roguelite, and it works really well, and it's a very unique idea. Like, even though Inscription came out a couple years ago, and there's been other card games that are deck builders and stuff like that, but this one is a very unique one. It's got a very chill vibe to it. I love the graphic style and like the CRT filters that they put in onto it. I like the new decks that you unlock by beating the game with random, like these other decks that you unlock. You can unlock decks and beat them, and then you unlock more decks. I love the randomness factor of having the jokers in there, and they do something different and designing your run around what kind of jokers that you get. It's just a very fun and kind of like a never-ending kind of game. Like, you beat it once and you go, oh yeah, that was great, I'm going to do that again, and you beat it again, and it's like, yeah, you kind of keep going. A lot of people are like, oh, why is, not only is there a DLC, but why is there a card game for Game of the Year, up for nominations for Game of the Year? And then they come back like a day later and they're like, oh, I see why it's nominated for a Game of the Year award, right? So it's one of those games where it's not like widely known, I suppose, even though a lot of people have played it. But it is one of those games where you can maybe kind of complain a little bit when you see it, like, oh, it's just a card game. But then if you actually play it, then you realize, oh, I see why it's nominated now, right? And there's a lot of people going through that right now where they say, oh, why is that nominated? And then they go, oh, I see why it's nominated. So it's a bit funny to see, It's one of those things that it's kind of expected, obviously, but it is a bit shocking to see so many people who didn't even know about the game or never played it or never heard of it. Or maybe they did know about it, but they hadn't played it. It's very interesting. So yeah, I mean, I agree with Balatro being on here. I think that it was a very good game this year. Next up is Black Myth Wukong, which is from Game Science. This was a long time coming kind of game. I think they revealed it at the Game Awards like 2 or 3 years ago at this point, and it was like the monkey guy jumping around and fighting enemies with his staff. And obviously, there's lots of layers in this game. It's not just a Souls-like. It's very much like has those RPG elements more to the forefront of leveling up your character, getting stronger. But it also has that Sekiro style of like, okay, but you have one weapon, and sure, you have things that you could use around it, but you need to base everything off of this one weapon, which is the staff in this game. And even though, like, yeah, the graphics are amazing, the music's great, I thought that the story was working really well. Like, each chapter is kind of its own contained story. I kind of started to fall off of it just because it was becoming annoyingly difficult and not fun difficult. There's a lot of games that get difficult and it's like a fun difficult, or it can be a bit frustrating. Like, I mean, I'll talk about the next game, but Shadow of the Erdtree was one of those things where it's like it started off kind of difficult, like kind of annoying difficult, maybe frustrating difficult, but the difficulty became a fun factor when you're trying to work your way around it. With Black Myth, I didn't really feel that way, so I'm by the time that I was around the end of chapter 2, I decided like I'm gonna try and make another big push, and I did get a lot of stuff done in that final push that I was making, but I wasn't having more fun with the game. I was just kind of like playing it because I had some sort of obligation to play it, and that's the point where I said, yeah, okay, I'm gonna just kind of end it here for now. And I have it still installed on my computer and everything. That's not the case. It's just yeah, eventually I'll probably get back to it, but I don't think I'm gonna finish it within this year. That being said, I do think it deserves to be on this list. It's in terms of technology-wise, it's a beautiful-looking game. In terms of gameplay-wise, it has so many layers on top of itself. Not only with just the melee combat, but there's a whole magic system. There's a cloning system. There's there's too much to really talk about. But I do think that, yeah, I think it does deserve to be on this list right here, up against these other games. All right, next up is Elden Ring: Shadow of the Erdtree from Software and Bandai Namco, and this is the big controversial one. And I started off going, oh, like it's kind of okay, like to have a DLC on here. It's big, it's whatever. But the more I thought about it, and I think I even kind of touched on this last week, the more I thought about it, the more I was like, well, I was giving these examples of like, oh, Uncharted Lost Legacy and oh, Assassin's Creed Freedom Cry and Liberation. Like those are games on their own, and they're big DLCs, but they're still games on their own. And that's when I realized, like, well, yeah, they are games on their own. You can play Freedom Cry without downloading Assassin's Creed 4. You can play Assassin's Creed Liberation without downloading Assassin's Creed 3. You can play Lost Legacy without installing Uncharted 4: A Thief's End. Shadow of the Erdtree, you need to have Elden Ring installed to play that game. And in that case, I would say I do disagree with this nomination. Like, even though it's a great DLC, don't get me wrong. Please do not get me wrong. It's a great DLC. It's a phenomenal DLC. It's a work of art. It's a huge DLC. But in the end, and at the end of the day, you do need to have a 2-year-old game installed on your PlayStation or PC or Xbox in order to play this expansion. This very big expansion, this very fun expansion, but an expansion nonetheless. And because of that, that is why I do disagree with the idea of having it up for Game of the Year contention. Any other award? Sure. Any other award, we can have a conversation. But Game of the Year, we are really going to give Game of the Year to a 2-year-old game again. Like, it won in 2022. It deserved that win. Like, even though it wasn't my favorite game that year, it was still a really good game, and it definitely deserved that Game of the Year win. If we give it Game of the Year this year, I might completely lose faith in the Game Awards. But like I said, it's still like a great expansion. It builds off of that base Elden Ring experience. It adds some new enemies, adds a lot of new bosses. It does keep a lot of the same old, but there is a good amount of mix up in there, and it does have a new entire area, big world to explore and its own standalone story that's separate from the base game of Elden Ring. But that's the problem, is that you can't really separate Elden Ring from Shadow of the Erdtree. Maybe in the future they will sever it and say, hey, you can buy this copy of Shadow of the Erdtree. You don't need the base game Elden Ring to play it. But I find that a bit impossible, seeing as you need to have a created character go into Shadow of the Erdtree, someone who can beat the Lord of Blood and all that stuff. So it's just one of those things where it's like, I was kind of with you there for a minute, but the more I thought about it and the more I was like, well, what other games could be here? There's plenty of other games, unlimited amount of other games that could be in this position. A lot of people are bringing up like Helldivers 2. I mean, that was the biggest, one of the biggest releases this year, and it was crazy. It was a live service game, which you don't really see a lot of live service games get the kind of attention that Helldivers 2 does. You could have put, a lot of people are suggesting the Silent Hill 2 remake, and even though I don't agree with that, I think that the Silent Hill 2 remake makes more sense being here than Shadow of the Erdtree. And also a lot of people are suggesting Stellar Blade, which, I talked about that a few weeks ago as well. Like, I'm not super big into Stellar Blade, but I would understand them putting it into contention. And Shadow of the Erdtree being on here, it just seems like whoever the judging community is who have nominated these games, they just took what had the best score and said, oh, that. And it was Shadow of the Erdtree. And that's why Jeff Keighley had to come out on Twitter and prepare people for this and say, like, hey, this is our updated terms of what can be nominated. Season passes, updates, and expansions and DLCs. And it's like, okay, you tricky little bastard. You're bending. They are bending, and I would say that this does kind of break a rule, an unsung rule, but a rule none the same. This is technically, the base game is from 2022. This is technically not a new game. This is just a new expansion. And once again, don't get me wrong, it's a great expansion. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5, but it is still a DLC and an expansion that cannot stand on its own two legs. It needs to have Elden Ring to function. And that right there is my reason for disagreeing with this. The other two games I haven't played personally, so I'm not going to talk about them too much, but yeah, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which was a given. The game obviously had people still has people captivated. I've heard that it's a lot better than the Final Fantasy VII remake from a couple years ago, and I like that. I do like hearing that because I wasn't a huge fan of remake or whatever it was called. And then Metaphor ReFantazio has also been given a Game of the Year nod. This is coming from Atlas and Sega and Studio Zero. Final Fantasy VII was from Square Enix. Apologies for not saying that. But Metaphor ReFantazio, once again, haven't played a lot. I've seen some gameplay. I'm not gonna say a lot. I've seen some gameplay. I watched a couple people stream it here and there. It's a turn-based RPG. It looks like a fun one. It's got a nice art style. It's obviously very Persona coded, but there are differences between the two, which I'm not going to go into depth talking about because I'm not I'm not a Persona fan, and two, I'm not a Metaphor ReFantazio player. So I don't want to speak out of turn and say something wrong and piss off a whole community. That's not my goal, nor should it be your goal. Like I think that transparency is a great thing for podcasts and stuff like this that is talking about games. If you haven't played a game, you don't have an obligation to talk about it. If you don't want to buy, like myself, if you don't want to buy Final Fantasy VII Rebirth for $70 just to play a couple hours and maybe talk about it for a podcast, have it be in the title, and maybe get a few extra clicks, like you can do that, but it's a waste of money and a waste of time. At the end of the day, I feel like transparency is the best, and telling you up front, I have not played these two games, so they're kind of X'd out of my conversation. I just want to be upfront about that as to why. But I don't know if I would even vote for these two if I had played them. One, I'm not a JRPG fan, and two, not like huge into the Persona series. So I don't know if I would have enjoyed them in general. But in my opinion, I think that Astrobot should win in this one. And if it doesn't win, I can foresee Final Fantasy VII Rebirth winning this year because it did not win back when Remake came out, and a lot of people were kind of upset about that. And them having this, the second game, and there will be a third game they already announced, I can totally see Rebirth taking this, if not Astro. So there you go. That's the Game of the Year contenders. Next up is Best Game Direction. Now, I just want to talk quickly about this one because I had a few qualms with what they have here, and I'm going to take any my personal understanding of game direction out of this. We're going to go off of what the Game Awards website has here. So this is awarded for outstanding creative vision and innovation in game direction and design. So let that sink in for a second. I'm going to take a sip of water. Let that sink in for a second. All right, you got that in your mind? Innovation in game direction and creative vision. Okay. So, here are the nominees. Astrobot. Okay, that's understandable. It's a very creative vision, and it is a bit innovative. It does have a lot of really cool things in there. Like, even though it is very much Mario Odyssey coded in a couple ways, it has a lot of unique aspects to it with the different robots and stuff that you attach to the Astrobot to make your way through things, like the one that blows you up into a balloon, or the one that uses its fist and punches thing in front of you, or the one that makes you turn into like an armadillo ball. There's a lot of different things in there that is pretty innovative. The next one is Balatro. So, once again, very innovative, very creative. It's taking that concept of poker and elevating it to a roguelite deck builder that hasn't been done before. Very good, very different. Black Myth Wukong. Once again, has very much a strong creative vision. It's like nothing you've really ever seen before in a lot of ways, with its setting and its characters. It's from that Chinese mythology that you don't really get too much in games, but this year has been blooming a bit, right? And also, innovation in game direction, like, yeah, it has a lot of stuff working together. This is a very unique Souls-like. At the end of the day, it is a Souls-like, but it is a very unique one in which there's a lot of things laid on top of each other to make it a very unique experience. Next up, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. You may have guessed what I'm getting at here. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. In terms of creative vision, like, yes, obviously it goes above and beyond with like the graphics and the setting and taking what originally was in Final Fantasy VII and bringing it into the modern era and fleshing it all out. Innovation in game direction and design. I can't really speak on it, but from what I've seen, I can only infer that it is very similar to Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is not a bad thing. But it's also like, how innovative and creative is that? If it really is kind of like the same thing going on, where, you know, as Cloud or whoever you play as, you command your other characters to do things, and you're like the main guy. Now, I could be wrong, and if I am wrong, I do apologize, but I don't know how innovative that really is in the gaming landscape. It's very creative. It does have a very creative vision, but innovation, not so sure about that one. Metaphor ReFantazio is also nominated for this, and once again, I don't want to talk out of turn. I haven't played the game. In my opinion, from just what I've seen, it does seem like a, you know, turn-based JRPG, which is not like super innovative, but I think that it's the way that they do it that makes it innovative. So I can kind of agree with this one. But once again, I haven't played the game a lot, so I'm kind of Xing it out of my mind right now. I'm trying not to think about it. And the last game nominated for Best Game Direction is Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. And this one doesn't make any sense. And yes, this is all the same games from the Game of the Year nominees, which is also a bit crazy in my opinion. Now, I'm gonna be repeating a lot of things, I think. But Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, how innovative is it to have DLC for the base game? How innovative is it to have the same gameplay, the same mechanics, a lot of the same enemies in there? How innovative is it to use assets from the original game and put them in here? I mean, as good as this DLC is, it's not really innovative. Like, yeah, there's some new bosses in there, but does that really make it an innovative game to have like these really good boss fights? I don't think so. And also, the other side of this is outstanding creative vision. It's the same vision as Elden Ring. It is not different from Elden Ring in its vision of being an open world Souls game. There's not really much else new in there unless you really, you know, the creative vision is using the Erdtree fragments to level your character up. Everything pretty much works the same. You just have a couple new weapons, you have a couple new enemies, you have a couple new bosses mixed in with the old stuff. So in my opinion, this is a pretty egregious addition to Best Game Direction. The direction, even if it is a great direction, is still the same from the original Elden Ring in both outstanding creative vision and innovation. So I think that this is another missed opportunity for another game in a different genre, or another game that came out this year that's in a different genre, to have a spot. In my opinion, the most innovative and creative game that came out this year was Balatro. Out of these games, I should say. Out of these games, the most innovative and creative game was Balatro. Even though there's other ones that I could mention, I'm not going to, because I run a competition at the end of the year for my top 10 games of the year, so I don't want to give anything away. But in my opinion, out of these 6 games that we have in front of me, I do think that Balatro has the best game direction. I think it does the best with its concept and ideas and innovation on the genre. All right, next up is Best Narrative. And this one actually had me thinking a little bit. This is, of course, for outstanding storytelling and narrative development. So we have Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which obviously you could say like, oh, it's just the story from Final Fantasy VII. Obviously, they change it up a lot. It's not just that narrative from Final Fantasy VII. So I understand that being here. Like a Dragon: Infinite Wealth. I've played enough of it to know that, like, yeah, it's written pretty crazily. There's a lot of crazy things going on. But it feels like a Yakuza game, you know. The Yakuza games have a lot of the same writing style, where it's like crazy over the top nonsense and then mix it in with like the mundane story of a girl who is crazy about a boy and you need to be like the mediator between them. Like crazy stuff like that happens all the times in these Yakuza games and Like a Dragon games. Obviously, the storytelling and writing in Infinite Wealth is on the same level as the other games in the series, so it's obviously, I understand this being here for sure. Metaphor ReFantazio is also nominated. I can't speak about this at all. I'm not going to even say anything about that. Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 is also a nominee here. And I think this has a great storyline. I think it has a very good narration, and I think that the narrative in the game is very good. So I do agree with this being here. And then finally, we have Silent Hill 2 Remake in the Best Narrative department too. And my only issue with Silent Hill 2, almost the same way as like Resident Evil 2, I think was nominated for the Best Narrative as well, the remake of that game, is it really is the same story with a few tweaks in there, of course. There's a few things different about them. It really is the same story from that game all the way back in the day. And I've played enough of Silent Hill 2 to know like it doesn't really change up it too much. But it does change some things here and there, so I do understand why they would put it here. Maybe it's just to kind of put a nomination for Silent Hill 2 because they couldn't, the Game Awards wasn't a thing back in the day when the original game came out, so maybe they're saying like, oh, we could maybe put a nod to the writing from that original game and have it be a nomination here. So either way, I'm okay with it being here. It's not my first choice for Best Narrative games, but it's still very good. I think that this category is sorely missing the sixth option here. I think that they could have slotted in another great story-driven game, whether it be Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden, or any number of well-done written games. I think there's plenty of them out there, and the fact that they aren't nominating 6 games for this category kind of tells me that they it could also be that maybe the rest of these will be 5, but it does kind of tell me like, okay, they got their big nominations out there and they're good with that. In my opinion, out of all these games, the one that I would vote for was Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. But I think that Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is going to win this one. If not that, then Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. But this one is a bit of a toss-up. It is a bit of a toss-up. They could throw the nod to Silent Hill 2 because it is that original story, and that original story is very good. Or they could throw it to Senua's Saga for the themes and the crafting of the story in that one. So we'll have to wait and see. But as of right now, I do have my money, if I had money down this, for Hellblade 2. Next up is Best Art Direction for outstanding creative and/or technical achievement in artistic design and animation. So, okay, I'm about to probably rant here, but they have Shadow of the Erd Tree here, and my God, it's the same graphics as Elden Ring. This is not innovative or creative or a technical achievement in artistic design and animation. It reuses animations from the base game. There are the same exactly copy and pasted animations for various weapons and spells and whatnot that are the same from the base game that came out 2 years ago in 2022. Best art direction in 2022 for the base game of Elden Ring is fine. But Shadow of the Erd Tree, the DLC, the expansion, outstanding creative and technical achievement, it's the same fucking game. It's the same game. Do you understand what I'm saying here? This is textbook the same. It's literally 2 sides of the same page. The animations are the same. The graphics style is the same. Like, does it look good? Yes, obviously it looks good, but it's using the same engine, the same graphics, the same lighting as the base game. You are going to tell me that Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree has better artistic design than any of the other games we've already talked about today, or any of the other games on the top of your mind right now. Think of a game that has outstanding art direction, whether it be an indie game like Animal Well, or a AAA game like, I don't know, Stellar Blade, okay? Think of any of these, any game in your mind. Is Is Shadow of the Erd Tree better than than any of those other games in terms of art direction? No, no fucking way, no way. So this is a blatant, just terrible pick for art direction. It is just a blatant and terrible pick for art direction. It is the same fucking graphic style, same art direction as Elden Ring. And even though, let me be clear, Elden Ring has a great art direction. It looks good. It's got technical achievements abound, okay? This is a DLC for that game. It is the same thing. It blows my mind that Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree is on best art direction. It really does. And I hope that you are also as annoyed as I am, because I don't want to be the only one ranting about Shadow of the Erd Tree being in this category. A lot of people are mainly ranting for the best, the game of the year, and I get that, but also there's other things that it's nominated for that it really should not be nominated for, and we will get to more egregious ones in the future, but this one's pretty egregious already. Let's talk about the games that actually deserve to be here. You have Metaphor ReFantazio again. You have Black Myth Wukong and Astrobot again for art direction. I think all three of those games are perfectly fine for art direction. Black Myth Wukong looks amazing. It has great animations. The graphics themselves are amazing. Same thing with Astrobot. Great animations, great artistic design, beautiful level design. Beautiful. Just everything's really well done on there. Like very meticulously designed graphics and stuff like that. Metaphor ReFantazio. It has that Persona swagger to it. It's got that very nice artsy, colorful, comic booky, I guess you could say, style to it. Very nice looking. The new one in this category is Neva, which comes from Nomada Studio and Devolver Digital. This is that game that uses like watercolors for its graphics, kind of like the Grease from back in the day. And I do think that I think that this deserves to be here. Neva definitely deserves to be here. It's a very beautiful looking game, even though I haven't played it myself. Just seeing the trailers, it looks great. In my personal opinion, I think that Astrobot does take the cake in terms of art direction. I think in terms of just like how everything looks, everything has a face, everything is so meticulously designed to a T. Even though Black Myth Wukong is very good in that department as well, I think Astrobot takes the cake here. And if we're looking at the most unique art design out of these choices, you got to go with Neva. So I think that Astrobot has a good chance of winning this, but I would not be surprised if Neva or Metaphor ReFantazio takes it here. But my personal pick would be Astrobot, of course. Next up, Best Score in Music. Here's one that I can get behind, okay? This one, I have no qualms with any of these games being up for Best Score in Music. You have Astrobot, you have Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, you have Metaphor ReFantazio, and Silent Hill 2 is back as well, along with the new game, Stellar Blade, coming from Shift Up and Sony Entertainment. Stellar Blade does have a great soundtrack. Obviously, there's plenty of songs to listen to from the soundtrack, all pretty much bangers. Yeah, very good soundtrack there. Great boss themes, great open world themes and stuff like that. Silent Hill 2 did have its I can't use the same argument from the before because Silent Hill 2 has a completely redesigned and redone soundtrack that sounds great. It really does. So can't really complain about that. And then Metaphor and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth are going to have stellar soundtracks, of course. Very bombastic orchestral scores and stuff like that. So obviously I understand why those two games are there, even though I haven't played them myself. Once again, I'm going to give this one to Astrobot. I think the soundtrack of Astrobot is amazing. And once again, I think it has a good chance of winning because the main theme was something that Jeff Cayley was posting about all the time on Twitter back when Astrobot first came out. He was like, oh, I still have that song stuck in my head from Astrobot. And I'm like, yeah, of course you do. So I think Astrobot has a good chance of winning this. If not Astrobot, then probably... I could see any one of these games honestly winning, but my personal opinion would probably be like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth having the best score music from the Game Awards. But my vote is once again for Astrobot. Not biased, just my opinion. All right, we have Best Audio Design. This is from the Best In-Game Audio and Sound Design. So you have Astrobot again, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Silent Hill 2. And then we have Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 and Call of Duty Black Ops 6 in this one as well. Personally, I think that all these games have a chance of winning again. I've not played a lot of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but I'm sure that it's got a great sound design to it. Silent Hill 2 does have great sound design. I don't really have any complaints there. Senua Saga also has very good sound design. I could totally see that winning. Black Ops 6, it's a Call of Duty game. Like, one of their big things is sound design. I think it's fine in the sound design department. I think out of all the years that I've played Call of Duty, besides from last year with Modern Warfare 3, sound design has been like a very good thing for Call of Duty all throughout their entire history, right? This one doesn't really do it for me. I think that this one does not have as good sound design as, say, Cold War or Modern Warfare 2. But I think that, sure, let's put it in. Let's just throw it in here. Doesn't matter. And then Astrobot obviously has a lot of great sound design, from the different platforms you're stepping on to the different gadgets that you're using and the different areas you go to. I think the audio design is great. My personal pick is, of course, Astrobot, but I could totally see Senua Saga winning this one, if not the narrative one. But I could definitely see Senua Saga winning this one too. But we'll see what happens. Best performance. This is for an individual for voice acting, motion, and or performance capture. And I really don't have any qualms with this list either. We have Brianna White, who played a character in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I think she plays Tifa. We have Hannah Tell, who plays a character in Life is Strange Double Exposure. I believe she plays Max. We have Humberly Gonzalez, who plays a character in Star Wars Outlaws. I'm pretty sure she plays the main character. We have Luke Roberts, who plays, of course, the main character from Silent Hill 2. And then we have Melina Jurgens, who plays Senua in Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. Personally, I think that any of these people could win this one. I think the least likely is Hannah Tell, because Max's line delivery, as I talked about when I originally played the game, is very bland and boring at times, and it just feels like it's being phoned in a couple times here or there. The performance as a whole is good, but there's just moments where I just feel like it's a bit lacking. For these other ones, I'm fine with. My vote is for Melina Jurgens, because obviously the character of Senua is very expressive, very emotional. She definitely put her all into the performance, not only the first game, but this game as well. So I definitely see her winning this one. And if she doesn't win, I mean, it's a toss-up, but I could definitely see Brianna White winning it as well. Next up is innovation in accessibility. This is one that I don't like. Obviously, I don't need to use any of these accessibility options, but it's nice seeing games getting nominated for these categories. We have Black Ops 6, Diablo 4, Dragon Age: The Veilguard, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, and Star Wars Outlaws. So there's one game here that kind of ticks me off, and that's Diablo 4. It doesn't say that this is the DLC or the expansion or anything like that. It just has it as Diablo 4. And Diablo 4 came out last year. It definitely came out it came out in like June of last year. So there's no overlap. There's no, it was released in December. There's no nothing like that. And even though they use the picture of the latest expansion for the game, they do not have the expansion listed on the website as what is being voted for in the category of accessibility. It's just Diablo 4. And in my opinion, Diablo 4 came out last year. It's not eligible for this awards. Even if you're going to put it on here, and if you're going to bend your rules as you've already done in the past, then put the whole title, Diablo 4 Season of Abyss, or whatever it's called, for the most recent expansion pass. They did not do that. They didn't do that. It's just Diablo 4, and that pisses me off. It's so annoying. There are plenty of other games that could have been in this exact spot, but we just have vanilla Diablo 4 as a nominee. And I think that is just the Game Awards have been bending and twisting their rules for this entire year. It's so weird to me. And there will be more. Don't you worry. In my opinion, out of all these games, I don't really know which one has the best accessibility. But I voted for Prince of Persia: Lost Crown because I think this is the only thing that it's nominated for, I think. So I just decided, throw it a bone. I could see any of these games, of course, winning this one. I hope that Diablo 4 does not win, seeing as it is a game from 2023. But at this point, you never know. You never know. Next up is Games for Impact. So this is for a thought-provoking game with a pro-social meaning or message. So this one has 6 nominees. A lot of them have had 5 in the past couple, but now this one has 6. I don't know why they changed it up like that. It doesn't make any sense to me, but here are your nominees. We have Closer the Distance from Osmotic Studios and Skybound Games. We have Indica from Odd Meter and 11-Bit Studios. We have Neva from Nomada and Devolver Digital. We have Life is Strange Double Exposure from Deck 9 and Square Enix. We have Hellblade, Senua's Saga. I'm sorry. We have Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2, and Tales of Kenzaru Zao from Surgeon Studios and EA, which that studio was closed down recently, so it's kind of bittersweet to have it on this list. In terms of games for impact, which one actually had the most impact for me personally? Well, there's only one game that I've really played, and that's Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, so I kind of have to put my vote on that one. But on the other hand, I don't really see Life is Strange winning this one because, much like the other Life is Strange games, it's really hard to really immerse yourself and dive deep into these newer ones because their message is so weird. It's very jumbled up, filled with, they got so much like other stuff going on that the message kind of gets buried. And the pro-social meaning or message is kind of lost in this one, per se. Tales of Kenzaru Zao, another one that I didn't play. I played a bit of it, enough to talk about it a little bit, but I got a refund on it because I didn't like the game. So I have nothing to say about that. And, of course, Neva, Indica, and Closer the Distance, I also have not played either. So my vote is on Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, and I think that one is going to win. Best ongoing game. This is awarded to a game that has outstanding development of ongoing content that evolves the player experience over time. So here's another one that I have a bit of controversy for. The first couple are fine, but the last one I will get to. Destiny 2, Diablo 4, Final Fantasy 14, and Fortnite are the first 4. There's one more. Let me talk about these other ones first before I talk about the last one. Destiny 2 has, of course, had billions of expansions, but people have not been super crazy about a lot of them in the most recent times. So you're kind of iffy on that one, but it's still an ongoing game, so it does, I guess should be here. Diablo 4, it came out last year, so yeah, it's had a lot of updates, had a lot of, it's had a lot of stuff going on with it, and they did not put anything, just having Diablo 4 here works because it is just Diablo 4. Final Fantasy 14, that's the online one. Obviously, it's an ongoing game. It's been around for quite some time. Same thing with Fortnite. It's been around forever. They constantly are updating it. That's a fine pick as well. Say what you want about Fortnite, it does deserve to be in Best Ongoing Series. The one that I don't agree with is Helldivers 2 from Arrowhead Game Studios and Sony. This is the first nomination for Helldivers 2, but it shouldn't have been the first nomination, let's all be honest. Helldivers 2 is not an ongoing game yet. It came out this year, and even though it's had updates throughout this year, it is technically not an ongoing game until, in my opinion, it's at least a year old. Then you can say it's an ongoing game. If we're putting games from 2024 into this, there's plenty of other ones from 2024 that could have been on this list too. What about Concord? That was an ongoing game, right? Why isn't that nominated? I mean, we're looking at the basics here, okay? If the game was released before 2024, I feel like, yeah, a year has passed. If they're still working on the game, thumbs up. We're good. Helldivers 2, yes, it's getting updated. Yes, there's things coming in updates and stuff like that. But I feel like, personally, a game needs to be around for at least a year. Make sure it's going to survive into the next year in order for it to be nominated. And in this case, even though I think Helldivers 2 is going to live for a while, maybe a couple years after, I don't think that it's been updated enough other than just regular patches and stuff like that for it to really be in this category of best ongoing. To me personally, the best ongoing game out of all these ones is Fortnite. And once again, put your biases aside for a second. In terms of constantly updating the game and giving new content to the players and giving new game modes and blah, 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 It's definitely the pinnacle of live service games. So I think this year, out of all the years, it does deserve this award. You could give it to Destiny 2, you could give it to Diablo, you could give it to Final Fantasy, but I think Fortnite is going to win it this year. Best community support. Now this one is different from the other one, whereas the community, the support community is the one that's being nominated here. So this is recognizing a game for outstanding community support, transparency, and responsiveness, inclusive of social media activity and game updates and patches. So this is technically different from the last one, being they're not if we're going to go off of this description, this is the award for best updates and patches. Okay? Best ongoing game is just a game from the past years that's been kept alive. So still, the Helldivers 2 pick boggles my mind there. Okay? It's so annoying. Let's also be honest, there's a lot of communities out there that have very strong community support, like the Cult of the Lamb community, that has a very vocal and very engaged social media support. Same thing with Another Crab's Treasure. You could also put that in best community support. They're always on Twitter, interacting with fans, putting out updates, being all around fun to follow on social media. So there's two right there that could have taken the places of any of these, really. But let's talk about it. So we have Baldur's Gate 3, we have Final Fantasy 14, Fortnite, Helldivers 2, and No Man's Sky. Once again, I think that all these are okay to be nominated, but we really should slot in the studios that are actually doing the most. Like Fortnite, do you really see Fortnite going out there and making goofy memes and talking shit? No, it is very much a commercialized social media campaign. Final Fantasy 14, I've really not seen anything about that, so I can't really talk about that. Baldur's Gate 3 does have a good support system. They're very open about their patches and stuff like that, so I do think that Baldur's Gate 3 does deserve to be on here. Same thing with No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky very much deserves to be on here. I think it deserves to be on here for many, many years to come, as it still is being updated to this day, and of course, the community spokesperson is very vocal and does a very good job with that. Helldivers 2 is my guaranteed win. Okay, this is my lock of the game awards, okay? Because Helldivers 2 went through several rough patches this past year. And the community managers are the ones who kept the community afloat. They kept people playing. They kept people coming back. And the community, the person who was leading the community, was fired because of his actions. He saved that game, and he was fired for his actions. So I feel like it just seems a bit disingenuous to not give Helldivers 2 the best community support, seeing as the people who are running those social media accounts literally saved that game from being forgotten about. They got people to come back to that game, and for all their efforts, they were fired, which sucks. But I think that the community and the community of Helldivers 2 really kept that game afloat. So I think that's like a lock for me. But you never know. You never know. Okay, we have Best Independent Game. So this is, of course, outstanding creative and technical achievement in a game made outside the traditional publisher system. We have a couple of new ones here, of course. We have Animal Well coming from Shared Memory and Big Mode. We have Balatro. We already know about them. Lorelei and the Laser Eyes coming from Simogo and Annapurna Interactive. We have Neva here again, and we have UFO 50 coming from Mossmouth. And I think all these are great. I think that these are great nominations. I feel like there should be a sixth one here, and that sixth one should be Another Crab's Treasure or something of the like. I feel like Another Crab's Treasure is the snub of the year, and they have nothing. They have nothing to show for this year, and it's really funny. Actually, no, it's upsetting that Jeff Keighley put out a tweet or a post before the awards were shown off, or the nominations were shown off, saying like, "Oh, what do you think the biggest snub is going to be?" Ha 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 ha. Very funny. Yeah, very fucking funny, dude. You're literally snubbing studios that honestly should have been nominated for several awards but have zero. And I think it's so disingenuous to come out on social media and ask, like, what's the biggest snub? What do you think the biggest snub's going to be? There should be no snubs in game, and there should be no snubs in this. I think the main issue right now that I'm having with the Game Awards is the fact that the jury that nominates games is very corporate based. There's not a lot of like there's not a lot of like independent people out there. I feel like they should be getting the I feel like they should be reaching out to like YouTube personalities and people who run like gaming review sites and podcasts and stuff like that. People, like, I feel like there should be more push for the general opinion rather than the corporate opinion. At the end of the day, obviously, the Game Awards is meant to sell games for the holiday season, right, and get people hyped for the next year. But I think that it does need to be run a bit better. I think that they are definitely failing in a lot of ways, and one of those ways is having these major snubs, these games that everyone knows should be on these lists, but either show up once or they don't show up at all. In my opinion, the best independent game out of this list is Animal Well. I think it's a really fantastic, like a Metroidvania kind of game. The graphic style is amazing. The music is great. And it was all made by one person and published by Video Game Donkey's new company. It's the first from Big Mode. So I think that out of all these studios, I know that there's, obviously Local Thunk and Mossmouth are new on the scene as well. But for Animal Well, I think that it does deserve the best independent game. A close second is Balatro, and I think UFO 50 also definitely deserves the nod here because that's a lot of that. If you've seen that game, if you've seen it being played, it's a lot of shit. There's a lot of stuff going on in that game, and I have been thinking about picking it up, but I'm not in the mood to spend money right now. But Animal Well would be my pick here. I think that it was a fantastic experience. Best debut indie game. Of course, this is for a studio putting out their game, a first-time studio putting out a new game. We have Animal Well and Balatro back, but we also have Manor Lords, which was developed by Slavic Magic. Pacific Drive, which was developed by Ironwood Studios. And The Plucky Squire, coming from All Possible Futures. I think that all these games are great. But once again, we are missing that sixth option. Why is there not 6 options for best debut indie game? There's so many more debut indie games out there. It just boggles my mind that we're not putting a 6th one on here when this category definitely deserves a 6th option, especially best indie game. I feel like best indie game for sure deserves 6 options. Debut indie game, we can have a conversation, but I think that it does deserve a 6th slot there too. In my opinion, if you're gonna nominate both Balatro and Animal Well for best indie game in general, then these other games don't stand a chance. If any of these other games win this category, but Animal Well or Balatro win best indie game in general, it's just a weird thing. It is just a weird thing, right? So in my opinion, if we're gonna put Animal Well as the best indie game, that also means that it's the best debut indie game as well. And of course, Balatro is right there with it, but in the end, if you're gonna make if I'm gonna say that Animal was the best indie game out of that list, then boom, I'm also gonna say that it was the best debut indie game, because if it's not the best debut indie game, but it's the best indie game, that's a bit of a contradiction. Best mobile game. We have AFK Journey, developed by Farlight. We have Balatro. We have Wuthering Waves, developed by Kuro Games. Zenless Zone Zero, developed by Hoyoverse, and Pokemon trading card game Pocket, created by Creatures Inc. and TPCI. Here's my issue. Jeff Keighley loves to talk about his cutoff date. The cutoff for the awards is November blah, 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 right? It's like November 15th, right? Or something like that. No, it's more like November 10th, right? Here's my issue. We have Pokemon trading card game Pocket on here, and yes, even though it did release in a beta version for a limited time early in the year, the full release came out after the cutoff date, I'm pretty sure, for the Game Awards. So why is, no matter what you think about Pokemon trading card game Pocket, no matter how quality of a game it is, okay? Take that out of your mind for a second here, okay? It's not eligible for this best mobile game category because it came out after the cutoff date. But of course, these tone-deaf companies who are giving Jeff Keighley these nominations say, oh, of course, Pokemon trading card game for the phone. But what they don't realize is that Pokemon trading card game Pocket for the phone released 2 weeks ago. after the cutoff of the Game Awards. So right away, I personally X out that game for me personally because it's like it shouldn't be here. I mean, if games like Indiana Jones and Anton Blast and Mario and Luigi Brothership can't be on this list simply because they came out too late in the year for the 2024 nominations, then why is the Pokemon trading card game here when it came out in that same time period of after the nomination period is over? That's another thing that really pisses me off that I've ranted about multiple times is these are the Game Awards for 2024 and we're missing 1.5 months in the year. And I understand you're selling games for Christmas, but come on. The Oscars do it right. The Grammys do it right. It's just stupid. And even like as I've said before and I'll say again, games that come out in the final 2 months of the year, like the Callisto Protocol, will not get any nominations the year later because, it's 2025. Those games don't deserve to be nominated. But if you remember from my conversation about the 2023 Game Awards, I said Callisto Protocol should be in the best like art style graphics, right? That it should be in that category because that game definitely pushed the boundaries of horror game graphics. Say what you want about the game itself. I personally didn't like the game either, but you cannot deny that that game is one of the best looking games from 2022/23. And it wasn't even, it was forgotten about by the time that the Game Awards came around because it came out in December. But these are the Game Awards for 2024, Yemmy. I guess I should say in my imaginary conversation, well, their games only released in 2023, Yemmy, so, Callisto Protocol doesn't make sense because it released in 2022. Oh, that just makes it all better that we just forget about any game that came out late November and in December. It's ridiculous. I voted for Balatro in here, but, I'm sure Pokemon Trading Card Game's going to win. Anyway, best VR/AR game. This is for the best game experience played on a virtual or augmented reality, irrespective of platform. I want to know how these nominations get on here. Because not only do we have Batman Arkham Shadow, which came out after the cutout date, we also have Metro Awakening, which also came out after the cutoff date. We have 2 games that released after the cutoff date. Once again, it's the Game Awards bending and moving their criteria for these games. Is Metro Awakening and Batman Arkham Shadow great VR games? I'm sure they are. I'm sure they deserve to be on here. But if we're going by the rules of this committee, the rules of this nominating period, those 2 games technically came out either on the cusp or right after the cutoff. So how are they nominated? It's because these companies obviously get the games early to review them, right? Sure. But the cutoff is the cutoff. The cutoff is the cutoff. I'll say it twice to emphasize my point. So once again, this is the most egregious year for rule bending and practically rule breaking for the Game Awards. This is the most egregious year. And it just doesn't make any sense to me. So what of our nominations? We got Batman Arkham Shadow, Metro Awakening, Metal Hellsinger VR, Asgard's Wrath 2, and Arizona Sunshine Remake. I also want to say Arizona Sunshine Remake probably shouldn't be on here. There's other VR games that should be here, like the Horizon game. But whatever. I voted for Arkham Shadow because I would like that to win, and I would also like to see it come to other platforms, so maybe if it wins a Game Award, it'll come to other platforms. My heart is with Metro Awakening, even though I haven't played it yet. I do plan on playing that. But really, any of these games could win, but my vote was for Batman Arkham. There you go. Best Action Game. This is for the game in the action genre focused primarily on combat, and there's actually some good ones here. We got Black Myth Wukong, we got Call of Duty Black Ops 6, we got Helldivers 2, Stellar Blade, and Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. I think all these games do deserve to be here. I think there are games with better combat in them, but these games, I think, do deserve to be here. As much as I enjoy Black Ops 6, I don't think that it is the best action game. I think that it probably is going to win this, but it's not my personal pick. Black Myth Wukong, I think, has good action, but it's not great action in my opinion. Same with Stellar Blade. Like, the basics are there, but in actuality, I don't really like the action in that game. Space Marine 2, it's a very sluggish and slow moving game, and the combat isn't like anything to write home about, even though it's decent. So the one game that I think we can all unanimously agree with is Helldivers 2. I think that it does have the best combat or action out of all the games on this list. I think that it's a game based around the combat and action. So that's really my vote for this one. I think that Call of Duty Black Ops 6 will probably win. But I guess we'll see. But that's that. Next up is best action adventure game. So I think they should just cut out the action and just put adventure game, because you have a best action category for a reason. We have Astrobot, Prince of Persia: Lost Crown, Silent Hill 2, Star Wars Outlaws, and Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. So I don't think that Star Wars Outlaws should be here. I think the technical issues with that game is more than enough to keep it off this list. They literally just updated it recently to fix a lot of stuff that was going on in the game. So saying that it's the best action adventure game for 2024 is a bit laughable in my opinion, with how many issues the game had. Maybe next year when it's nominated for best ongoing game, that'll work out, but as of right now, I don't see why they would nominate this for best action adventure when it released in such an abysmal state. I could definitely see Legend of Zelda winning, Prince of Persia, and Astrobot. Silent Hill 2, personally, I don't think it should win this, but, I voted for Astrobot, of course, but I think that possibly Silent Hill 2 will win this one. Best RPG. So, a lot of these games I have played, but the one game I have played is the one that I have the most controversy about. So best RPG, we have Dragon's Dogma 2, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, and Metaphor ReFantazio. So the problem here is the fifth option is Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree for best RPG. We're going to give best RPG to a game from 2022, are we? I keep going back to the same point, but it's so valid for all these different nominations. Shadow of the Erdtree is not a new game, it's a new DLC, it's a new expansion. It's a very good expansion, it's a very good DLC, but it doesn't do anything much different from the base game of Elden Ring, which is attached to by the hip. It cannot leave. It is a conjoined twin of Elden Ring. If we give best RPG to a DLC, then we're just giving best RPG to Elden Ring again for the second time, right? If we give best RPG to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth or Metaphor ReFantazio, I think that's fine. Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, I think that's fine. Dragon's Dogma 2, I think it'll be fine. I have not played 4 out of 5 games, so personally, I have no other option than to vote for Shadow of the Erdtree here, because I haven't played any of these other games. But if I was a gambling man, which maybe I am, I would probably say that Final Fantasy is going to win this one. Yeah, but we'll see. Best fighting game. Once again, I haven't played a lot of these, and the one game that I have played, I do not agree with being on here. We have Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. We have Grand Blue Fantasy vs. Rising. We have Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics. We have Multiverses and Tekken 8. Multiverses should definitely not be on here. I've talked about it before in more length, but I think that in terms of like games that were rebooted this year, this one stunk. Multiverses is not a good fighting game anymore. It was at one time, and they kind of messed it up, in my opinion. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is apparently the best-selling Dragon Ball Z game of all time now. I know there's some issues with it that I've heard people talk about, but I think that, in general, I think it deserves to be here. I've never even heard about this Grand Blue game, so I have no opinion about that. Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection, I feel like could win this simply because it is a collection of like some of the best fighting games of all time, including Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which everyone raves about, which I do have the physical version. I am ready to play it. I just haven't gotten around to it yet, so I'll update you guys next week on that. And then Tekken 8, which is a long-running series. Obviously, Tekken 8 was one of the first big games to release this year, and a lot of people love Tekken 8. I think that it definitely deserves the nomination here, and I do think that it will win. But my vote will be going for Marvel vs. Capcom in this case because I think that I don't know. I just there's something about the about it that's drawing me to it. But I do think that Tekken 8 deserves the win here. So maybe I should change my vote to Tekken 8, but nah. All right, best family game. We have Astro Bot, we have Princess Peach Showtime, Super Mario Party Jamboree, The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, and The Plucky Squire. I am voting for Astro Bot here, of course. In terms of like family games, though, I don't know if Astro Bot is really like a family game per se, even though, of course, younger kids can play it. I feel like when you're thinking of a family game, you do lean towards that Nintendo kind of thing going on. I think I do agree with all these nominations, but I do think that Astro Bot would deserve to win this one out of all of them. In terms of like other games that could win this one, I mean, it's kind of a toss up here. Princess Peach Showtime was fun. I'll give it that. Super Mario Party Jamboree is a good Mario Party, but it's not a great one. You've heard me ramble about that. Echoes of Wisdom, I'm sure it's great. And Plucky Squire is fine, but I don't think it's a stellar experience. So, yeah, Astro Bot would be my pick. And I think that it should win Best Family, but I could also see Echoes of Wisdom winning this one as well. Best Simulation and Strategy Game, we have Age of Mythology Retold, Frostpunk 2, Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess, Manor Lords, and Unicorn Overlord. I haven't played any of these games, so it's a toss-up for me. I do think that Age of Mythology Retold being a remaster and or a remake, I think that they should have put something else there because once again, it's like, yeah, sure, it's a new game and it's obviously redone and whatever, but like have some of these other series shine, right? I don't think the best sim and strategy game needs to go to a remaster or a remake, right? But hey, put it on there for any reason. For me personally, I picked Manor Lords simply because it was a brand new IP, a brand new game for an indie game. And compared to these other games that I haven't played, it's like, okay, throw a bone to the new guy, Now we have Best Sports and Racing Game. So as I said on stream, racing is a sport, so it's redundant to put Best Sports Racing Game. NASCAR is a sport. Say what you want, but NASCAR is technically a sport. Same thing with F1 and rally and whatever. Racing does go under the blanket of sports, okay? So it is a bit redundant to have racing also included on this. Our nominations are F1 24, EA Sports FC 25, NBA 2K25, Top Spin 2K25, and WWE 2K24. I am very surprised that college football is not on here. College Football 25, that was one of the most anticipated games coming out this year, and I'm very surprised not to see it on here. Same thing with Madden. I think Madden 25, like, it actually improved Madden as little as it did. It did improve Madden this year, so I'm very surprised not to see that. Maybe they're going with variety here, not having all the games be from 2K or EA. So I haven't played any of these games, so I just kind of blindly voted for WWE for no reason, but there you go. Best Multiplayer for outstanding online multiplayer gameplay and design, including co-op and massively multiplayer experiences, irrespective of game genre or platform. So this one is a bit interesting because you have Tekken 8 here again, and I don't know if, like, I mean, yeah, it's a very big online community for Tekken. It doesn't really like scream multiplayer to me, but I think all these games do kind of deserve to be here. Let's go through the list here. Call of Duty Black Ops 6, Helldivers 2, Super Mario Party Jamboree, Tekken 8, and Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. Yes, I think all these games, I guess, deserve to be on here. Super Mario Party Jamboree, though, like, I don't know. I feel like there's plenty of other games in the multiplayer community that should have been here but aren't. You could have put Shadow of the Erdtree on here. Sorry, bad timing on the joke. Helldivers 2, Black Ops 6, I think both of those could win. Tekken 8, of course, has a very strong community. I voted for Helldivers 2 because as a whole, for best like multiplayer experience that I had this year, I think Helldivers 2 definitely takes the cake in terms of like interactions with people and working with other people, and the whole vibe of the game is multiplayer. So I feel like if you give it to anything else, it's kind of like, okay, whatever. But yeah, I think Helldivers 2, that's my vote for this one, but I feel like Black Ops 6 will win, and I think it would be really funny to see Super Mario Party Jamboree win this one. All right, best adaptation. This is for recognizing outstanding creative work that is faithful and authentically adapts a video game to another entertainment medium. And we have Arcane, Fallout, Knuckles, Like a Dragon, Yakuza, and Tomb Raider: The Legend of Lara Croft. I've only heard negative things about this Yakuza TV show, so that's kind of like a weird question mark there. Knuckles, I haven't watched. I haven't watched most of these. I've only watched Fallout. But I feel like even if I had watched Arcane or the Tomb Raider series, I would still choose Fallout here, because Fallout was a very good, very campy. You definitely encapsulated the Fallout vibe in a show format. So I voted for Fallout, and I can't wait for season 2. Next up is most anticipated game. Of course, there's a game that was announced in the past and is coming out in the future. And we have Death Stranding 2 on a Beach, Ghost of Yotai, Grand Theft Auto 6, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, and Monster Hunter Wilds. And even though I like these nominations, of course, I think the Grand Theft Auto 6 will win this one. But to me personally, even though I am excited for Ghost of Yotai and whatever, there is an air of mystery around Metroid Prime 4 that you just can't shake. It is so encapsulating because of its development history, and is it going to be on the Switch 2? Is it going to be like a launch title for the Switch 2? Will it come out next year? What's going on with this game, right? I think that air of mystery leads me to that being my most anticipated game next year or out of this list, right? So my vote is for Metroid Prime 4, but I think that Grand Theft Auto 6 will win this one. Next, we have Content Creator of the Year. For a streamer or content creator who has made an important and positive impact on their community in 2024. I'm going to read these and then I'm going to rant. It's probably the same rant as every year. We have Queso, we have Illusion, we have Techo Gamers, we have Typical Gamer, and Usada Pecora. When will the Game Awards nominate an actual content creator from a different platform that is not Twitch or a streaming service? I'm sure these are all fine people. I've heard plenty of good things about Queso and Typical Gamer. I'm sure they're great people, okay? Don't quote me on that if they do something bad in the future. But where are the people who are on YouTube and other platforms creating content? There are so many people who have never been nominated for this award that should be here, who should have already won an award in the past. Doug, Video Game Donkey, Arlo, Beat 'em Ups. I mean, the list goes on. And Wario 64, like the dude is crazy big on Twitter. Where are the people who are making these Ant Dude and all these different people who are making content not on Twitch? A lot of those people have started to move over to Twitch to maybe, I don't know, try and get a nomination here. But think about all the charity events that Doug has run. Think of all the good that these people have done. Scott the Woz, he does a charity event every single year and he makes millions of dollars for children in need for children in need. Why aren't they nominated? If you're talking about someone who had a positive impact in their community, there are two people right there. It's Doug, lots of money for the Seattle Aquarium. Scott the Woz, lots of money for children. Two people right there. Video Game Donkey created his own publishing studio this past year, and it released their first game. Do you not think that he deserves to be a content creator of the year? Out of these people, I voted for Queso. I don't follow any of these people. I've heard the most about Queso, and I've seen the most crazy clips of Queso. Okay. But it breaks my heart that the Game Awards and their nominating community cannot look past Twitch. The content creation stops at streaming for them. And that just really breaks my heart because there's so many creators out there who are putting their all into this thing. And they push the medium of content creation, and they do so much. They've been around for years. They do so much for their communities, for charities, for everything. I mean, hell, Scott the Woz aired on TV last year for G4, and he wasn't nominated last year, and he's not nominated this year. It's so annoying to me. It is so annoying to me, and I will rant I will rant about this every year if I need to. But it's the same story every year. It's streamers, and never past that. Because streamers are content creators. Let's be honest. But if you think of a content creator, I do think your mind goes towards like the YouTube side of things, right? But it's just so crazy that these nomination panel can't look past Twitch. It's very annoying, and not to mention that they've nominated people who have done pretty shady things in the past. Let's be honest. I don't want to get into it, but yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, let's look past the realm of Twitch, even though Twitch is still a great platform. Let's look past that realm and start to nominate people who are making impacts in what you say in their community, a positive impact in their community, or they've had a big important thing happen in their community. So there you go. Rant over again. And now we get into the categories that I don't really care about, so I'm just going to quickly go through them. Best esports game. We have Counter-Strike 2, Dota 2, League of Legends, Mobile Legends Bang Bang, and Valorant. I voted for Counter-Strike 2. Best esports athlete. We have 33. Elksib, Chavi, Faker, Zywoo, and Zimjik. I feel like Faker's going to win. I've heard the most about him, but, whatever. Best esports team, Billy Gaming, Gen.G, Navi, T1, and Team Liquid. And the player's voice is not out yet. There's 3 rounds. The nominations for that start on December 2nd, and round 3 will decide the winner, so we'll see what the fans vote for when that is all said and done. So, yeah, this was probably the most, like, I hate to use the word loosely, but controversial year for me in the Game Awards history. Honestly, I feel like this year is probably the year that I had the most issues with that I've watched since it started, or at least since I started watching. So yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like we are really bending and frankly breaking these rules that are established for this. These rules that have been around for years and years. And even though, sure, let's nominate a DLC, but why you gotta do it for like the most important categories? Categories that have other games that totally deserve to be there that are actually released in the current year and actually are their own thing. I wouldn't be as upset if Shadow of the Erdtree was a standalone, like you can play it without having Elden Ring installed type game, but it's not. It's not. As much as I enjoyed Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, I don't think it deserves to be nominated for any of those categories other than a best DLC or expansion category, which they don't have, and maybe they should make at this point. So that's the Game Awards. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. But for me personally, this is probably going to be the most annoying year, and I'll come back to you guys with all the winners once December 12th comes around and the Game Awards kick off. All right, let's talk about the Golden Joystick Awards. That also happened. This is the 42nd Annual Joystick Awards, and these are the winners for that. Now, once again, I really do feel like the Golden Joystick Awards, take a book out of the Oscars. Do your award show in like January or February, I respect the Golden Joystick Awards about as much as the Game Awards, simply because if you're going to do the awards for 2024, you got to include games from 2024. Even my award show, the nomination period does start like midway through December, right? And then at the end of December is the award show. There's still games coming out during that nomination period. They're all eligible. But there's not a lot, of course. But that's the thing, though. Like, they don't even give those games a chance in these two major things. Anyway, let's go through the winners here. Best audio design was Astrobot. Best soundtrack, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Best storytelling, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Best multiplayer game, Helldivers 2. Best visual design, Black Myth Wukong. Best indie game, Balatro. Best indie game self-published, Another Crab's Treasure. Studio of the Year went to Team Asobi. Best lead performer went to Cody Christian for Cloud from Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Best supporting performer went to Brianna White for Aerith from Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. The Breakthrough Award, the Critics' Choice Award, went to Balatro. The Still Playing Award went to Minecraft. The Still Playing Award for Mobile went to Honkai Star Rail. The Best PC Game of the Year was Satisfactory. The Best Console Game of the Year was Helldivers 2. Most Wanted Game was Grand Theft Auto 6. The Critics' Choice Award went to Helldivers 2. The Best Game Expansion went to Shadow of the Erdtree. The Best New Gaming Hardware went to Steam Deck OLED. The Best Early Access Game went to Lethal Company. The Best Game Trailer went to Helldivers 2. The Streamer's Choice Award went to Chained Together. I guess the best game that streamed on Twitch. The Best Game Adaptation went to Fallout. And the Ultimate Game of the Year was Black Myth Wukong, which is very, very surprising. I don't really have anything to say about these. I don't know what was nominated, so I can't really contrast and compare. Best console game going to Helldivers 2 is a bit crazy to me, seeing as that game launched in such an abysmal state, and once again is back into a state where people are not satisfied. So it is a bit crazy that it won console game of the year, but I'm fine with most of this other stuff. It doesn't really matter to me. And Black Myth Wukong winning game of the year is pretty crazy. Not my pick, but I can respect it at least. Okay, let's move on to Sony. They are reportedly in talks to acquire Kadokawa Corporation, which is the studio that owns From Software. Now, apparently, according to a Japanese newspaper, negotiation between Sony and Kadokawa are in the very early stages, but it is worth noting that Sony has sent them a letter of intent regarding a potential takeover and getting the shares required to do so. Right now, Kadokawa has made no decision on it yet, but here's their statement. There are some articles on the acquisition of Kadokawa Corporation by Sony Group Inc. However, this information is not announced by the company. The company has received an initial letter of intent to acquire the company's shares, but no decisions have been made at this time. If there are any facts that should be announced in the future, we will make an announcement in a timely and appropriate manner. So it seems like this is in a very, very early stages of talks. It's possible that this will not go through at all, or it's possible that this will lead to an acquisition of the company. A lot of people are begging for Bloodborne remastered or a 60 FPS version of Bloodborne. People are begging for a Bloodborne 2. This could essentially make it possible, like really possible. Even though it's possible before, now it would be even more possible. And also having From Software games, the kings and queens of Souls-like games being exclusive to a PlayStation platform and requiring a PlayStation login for future games on like PC platforms, that would be huge. That would be absolutely huge. And I mean, Sony and From Software have had a good relationship. I mean, one of the launch games for PlayStation 5 was Demon's Souls, which is a remake of a PS3 game. And don't forget that Bloodborne is still stuck on PS4. It is a PS4 game through and through. So they do have a good relationship, even though From Software publishes on multiple platforms. Sony and From Software have been buddy-buddy for quite some time. So, it's very possible that this could go through. If it does, I would be very surprised, but also not that surprised. Just like that Futurama meme, I'm shocked. Well, not that shocked. So, essentially, I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens. As of right now, it seems like they're just kind of starting the conversation. And we'll see what happens. Maybe next year we'll see a welcome to the family post on Twitter or something like that. All right, Grant Kirkhope has joined the new indie game studio that was founded by David Solani, who, if you don't recall, recently left Ubisoft after Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope came out. He was the director of the Mario and Rabbids games. So the new studio that he created is called Day for Night, and they're focused on delivering deeply heartfelt and original games that innovate in storytelling and design. And they posted an announcement the other day saying, at D4N, we're incredibly honored to announce that Grant Kirkhope will not only be our official composer, but also a full-fledged member of the team. I tried to convince my partners that this was a bad idea, but they wouldn't listen. There's no way out now. So I guess that's a little cheeky joke. But they obviously have had relations in the past because Grant Kirkhope did the soundtracks for Kingdom Battle and Sparks of Hope. So them working together again should be kind of fun. And yeah, we'll see what happens. Obviously, Grant Kirkhope has a very long and storied history of soundtracks for video games, starting all the way back in the day with like Banjo-Kazooie and the Donkey Kong 64 game, GoldenEye 007. He also did stuff for Red Dead Redemption and Star Fox Adventures and whatnot. So there you go. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the new beta update for the PlayStation Portal. This will actually allow you to play cloud games from a streaming service. Okay, let me say that again. This will now allow you to play cloud games from PlayStation Plus. So if you have PlayStation Plus Premium, you have access to a bunch of different games for cloud streaming. You can turn off and on the cloud streaming beta option inside of your Portal's settings. So essentially, this does remove the requirement to have your Portal be around your PlayStation 5 console and be connected to your PlayStation 5 console to work. Now, if you're able to do cloud games, you'll be able to just connect to the internet and play a game on cloud gaming. So essentially, toggle the setting on, and then once selected, a new option will appear in the Portal's home screen that allows you to access the PS5 titles available for cloud streaming. To play in 720p, you'll need 7 megabytes, and for 1080p, you'll need 13 megabytes of internet data. The beta is strictly about cloud streaming of games, so you won't be able to access features on the PlayStation Plus Premium games like game trials, but you will be able to play PS3... Oh, I'm sorry. You will only be able to play PS5 games that are native PS5 games for cloud streaming, so games like PS3 and PS4 titles will not be supported yet, but maybe in the future. So there you go. Black Friday is right around the corner. We'll see if there's any good, juicy deals for the PlayStation Portal. Right now, it's still $200, which I feel like is a bit much for something like this. But yeah, I mean, I like the idea of cloud streaming. Makes it more of its own thing rather than being attached at the hip to the console. But we'll see what happens. All right, so Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is coming around the theaters soon at this point. And the press package going out is pretty cool. And I just wanted to talk about this real quickly. Essentially, the press box is a Genesis box, and it has a actual Genesis cartridge for Sonic the Hedgehog 3 inside of it. It's a replica cartridge that actually works. And on the cartridge are character voice lines, posters, and a simple mini game that you can play on a Sega Genesis. I'm pretty sure there's probably a download code as well inside the box, because I mean, how many people have a Sega Genesis besides from myself? But I think this is pretty cool. I can't wait to see this on eBay for like $200. You know. But I think it's pretty cool. I think it's a pretty cool addition, or a pretty cool thing, and I would love to see what that mini game is. I think that'd be kind of cool. All right, 7 games from Activision have recently received an update on Steam. So these 7 games are ones that we haven't seen in a while. Deadpool is the most recent one, but that was recently, I mean, I guess not recently, but it was relisted and delisted again. So Deadpool got an update along with Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2, Spider-Man Shared Dimension, Transformers Devastation, Fall of Cybertron, and War for Cybertron. A lot of people are kind of like, oh, if they're updating these games, does that mean something's going to happen? Did someone re-up the IPs? Did whatever happen? I don't really know exactly what is going on, and I mean, obviously speculation is off the wall. The best case scenario is, yes, we get these games back and they get put on Steam and they get put up for sale again on all their respective platforms. That would be amazing, because I have only played Fall of Cybertron, and I have not played War for Cybertron, and I would love to play War for Cybertron, and it's, whatever else. So that'd be great. That's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is that the games were updated to keep them offline or to remove something from from whatever. A lot of people are saying that, I guess, a new screenshot appeared for every single one, but they're like it's an old screenshot, so they're not sure what happened. Personally, I don't think this is going to mean anything. I don't think don't get your hopes up, I should say. I don't think this really means anything. The IP, to put these games back onto shelves and put them back in terms of being available for sale would take about as much work as putting GoldenEye back up for sale like they did for GoldenEye. It's been done. It was done for the Xbox and for the Switch, but it's nearly impossible at this point because the IPs and the studios associated with these games are all over the place. Some of these studios don't even exist anymore. So yeah, I wouldn't get my hopes up at all, but best case scenario is, hey, next year we get to play these games again. Worst case scenario, nothing happens and the games stay offline, which honestly is just how it's been. So it wouldn't be that bad, but it's still it would be a bit disappointing. And finally, for the news today, Assassin's Creed Syndicate got a surprise update for the Xbox Series S and X and the PS5 and PS5 Pro. Essentially, this update allows the game to run at 60 FPS. And that's pretty much it. But that's a big update. I think Assassin's Creed Syndicate is one of those it's one of those Assassin's Creed games that doesn't get a lot of love, but I think deserves a bit of love. I mean, even though it did have some annoying missions here and there, I think that for the most part, it was a pretty good title. I enjoyed it myself a lot. And I do think it deserves maybe a bit of a second wind. I don't know if people will agree with me, but it is cool that it did get an update. I mean, this game came out in 2015. So it's been a long time, and I don't think it's been updated since then. So it's pretty cool that you can now play it in 60 FPS. I'm sure there'll be a couple people at least trying it out. Me personally, I think I still have my physical copy of Syndicate, so I could run it at 60 FPS. I think that might be a cool experience. They didn't do anything else to the graphics or anything like that. Obviously, this update's not for that. It's simply for the better frame rate, which, I mean, the better frame rate does make a game look smoother, look better. But it's not if a game doesn't have 60 FPS, I'm not going to be like, ew. But it is nice to have. It's nice to have, and I think that's a nice update. So there you go. All right, let's move on to what's coming soon. All right, here are the 33 confirmed characters for Marvel's Rivals at launch. There were 6 more revealed and 1 more after that. So technically it's 34 characters now. I think I've gone through some of these characters before, but I'm going to go through all of them again. Haha. We have Hawkeye being the newest confirmed character. Adam Warlock, Black Panther, Captain America, Doctor Strange, Groot, Hela, Hulk, Iron Man, Jeff the Landshark, Loki, Luna Snow, Magic, Magneto, Mantis, Moon Knight, Namor, Penny Parker, Psylocke, Punisher, Rocket Raccoon, Scarlet Witch, Spider-Man, Star-Lord, Storm, Thor, Venom, and Winter Soldier. And I think that this is a great lineup for a game like this. Obviously, it's a bit weird having, being a hero shooter and brawler and all that, but I think that in terms of what's the best characters for a game like this, I think that this list is almost perfect. So there you go. And this is still slated to release on the 6th of December. It's a free-to-play launch with a battle pass. So if you want to check that out, there is a dev diary kind of video, a new one on the Marvel Rivals YouTube channel. If you want to check that out, see any new sneak peek things about what's coming up in the game. For the most part, it is just a guy talking. But yeah, in terms of hero brawlers and shooters, I think this one might leave a bit of an impact. But we'll wait and see when that comes out. I guess in 2 weeks. All right, big news. Roller Coaster Tycoon Classic is coming to the Switch, baby. Being published by Atari. Roller Coaster Tycoon Classic is coming the 5th of December. This is the original game, the one that I grew up with. You'll be able to play it on the Switch portably. I don't know how well it's going to play, but it is coming. It did have a bit of a UI update, so it is a bit different from the original version, but for the most part, it is that original experience that I know and love. And of course, it does include all the expansion packs as well. Very cool. This is coming December 5th. I don't think there's going to be a physical edition for it, but if there is going to be a physical edition, I will be the first in line for that. That would be amazing to have a physical version of Roller Coaster Tycoon in my hands. In a press statement from Atari, they said, fans of Roller Coaster Tycoon Classic have been hoping for a Switch version, and we are excited to bring it to the platform. Our partners at Graphite Lab did an amazing job translating our Roller Coaster Tycoon's classics detailed keyboard-based controls to controller input. Bringing Roller Coaster Tycoon Classic to the Switch was a massive with its massive install base is an opportunity to re-engage lapsed players, provide active players with another great hardware platform, and reach a new generation of players who will now discover the franchise for the Switch. In my opinion, I still love the first game the best, and probably it's because I grew up with that one. Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 is great, but there's always a place in my heart for Roller Coaster Tycoon 1, and the classic version, even though it's not my favorite version of the game, is at least a good version of the game to play. And we'll see how this Switch version works. I mean, it looks fine. So, whatever. Like I said, it just has a bit of a UI update, which is, it's kind of weird having this new UI with the old school graphics, but there you go. All right, there was a Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver 1 and 2 remastered trailer that went up on PlayStation's YouTube channel. The pre-orders have been announced to be coming out on December 10th if you want to pre-order the game. The video just kind of shows off the environments in their remastered form. Obviously, a game like this, you don't want to like remaster too much to make it uncanny or whatever, but the graphics got updated enough to look clean and the visuals are nice. If you've never played Soul Reaver 1 and 2, here's your chance. And I think that they look good. The games look good for the little bit that we saw of them. And if you want to check out the game, like I said, the pre-orders are coming up on December 10th. Alien Rogue Incursion has gone gold, and there's a new trailer for it out right now on PlayStation's YouTube channel. This is a PSVR 2 game coming on December 19th. And it looks pretty good. I mean, if you ever wanted to play Alien Isolation in first person and you don't feel like modding your Steam account or your whatever the game files to allow it, this is the closest that you'll be able to get. It's definitely a survival horror game for the VR. It doesn't look amazing in terms of graphics, but I think it's presentable. I think it's fine. For a VR game, it does look pretty good. And there is a deluxe edition that you can buy, which will include. It doesn't say what it includes. There's also a pre-order bonus. If you pre-order the game, you get a bonus weapon and armor skin inspired by Alien Romulus. There you go. All right, speaking of VR games, Trombone Champ Unflattened is coming to PSVR 2 on November 26th. If you don't recall, Trombone Champ is like that goofy, kind of wacky game where you played the trombone and you played all these, these songs they're pretty much public domain. They're all pretty much public domain. With this VR version, you'll be able to play the trombone in first person, and you can actually decorate it on your own. You can actually use the VR controllers to decorate it and all that. I'm not sure how the controls will work, but essentially it's probably going to be about the same as playing a trombone in real life by having the one Joy-Con be moving and maybe the other one's going to be playing, but it's hard to say exactly how you play it just by looking at this footage. Trombone Champ was a bit of a sleeper kind of fun game last year. It didn't win any awards, but it was a pretty fun one. I did enjoy it, so maybe I'll check out this VR version of the game in the future, but as of right now, it is coming out on November 26th. Here are 5 games coming to Game Pass. Some of these are already available now. So on November 20th, Little Kitty Big City got released for Xbox Game Pass Standard, Played Up for Xbox Game Pass Standard. Stalker 2, of course, came out for the premium version. And then on November 26th, 9 Souls will be available, and November 27th, Aliens Dark Descent, which is like the RTS XCOM-inspired Aliens game. That'll be available on November 27th. So there you go. The games that are leaving Game Pass at the end of November are Conan Exiles, Coral Island, Hello Neighbor 2, Remnant from the Ashes, Roller Drome, Soccer Story, Spirit of the North Enhanced Edition, The Walking Dead, the final season, and While the Iron's Hot. Out of all these games, I would definitely recommend playing Remnant or Rollerdrome. Spirit of the North is fine, and Walking Dead, the final season, is good. So if you're going to check out those games out, you should do so before they're gone on November 30th. Here are the PlayStation Plus games set to leave the service this coming month as well. Metal Hellsinger, Solstice, Vampire the Masquerade, Cortices of New York City, Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, Moon Scars, Mega Man 11, Grime, Tinykin, Proteus, Mega Man Legacy Collection 1 and 2, Evil Genius 2 World Domination, Judgment, Dead Island Definitive Edition, Dead Island Riptide Definitive Edition, and Giga Blast. I would personally say check out Mega Man, the Mega Man games. Grime is a great 2D Souls-like Metroidvania. Tinykin is a great Pikmin kind of game. Metal Hellsinger is fun, just a bit bland with its boss design. And Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins is just kind of goofy, but it's also a Souls-like game, so if you want to check that out, it'd be kind of funny. Proteus, I've heard good things about. It's like a Doom kind of game, so if you want to check that out, make sure you do that. And then they added another game to the Nintendo Music Soundtrack Collection, and this is an N64 game. It is F-Zero X. So there's 20 tracks in total from F-Zero X for a total runtime of 38 minutes. Included tracks are Endless Challenge, Dream Chaser, Fall Down the Stream, Decided by the Eyes, A Devil's Call in Your Heart, Long Distance Murder, Crazy Crying Call, Driving Through on Max, Climb Up, Last Chance, All We Need is 30 Deaths, Title BGM, Machine Select, Options, Before the Storm, Goal Fanfare, Goal BGM, Retire, Game Over, Grand Prix Ending, and Staff Credits Roll. So if you want to check that out, that's available right now on the Music app if you want to check that out. All right. Let's head over to the shortest ever rendition of What Have I Been Playing this past week. Once again, I was kind of expecting this to be a short episode, but the Game Awards stuff took a lot of time because, I ranted a lot. But what have I been playing this past week? I have been playing a lot of games that have been longer experiences. So my games completed this week are pretty low, all things considered. I'm still playing through Mario and Luigi Brothership. Still checking out, still kind of dragging my feet on other games like Life is Strange and a couple of others, of course. But some games that I finished this past week are Super Castlevania 4, which Catalyst recommended that I play for the month of November. And what do you know? It's a Castlevania game, and I wasn't too crazy about it. I think it's fine. Like, it's good in terms of, like, pixel artwork and music and stuff like that, but I really wasn't crazy about the game in general. I liked it about the same as I liked Symphony of the Night, maybe even a little bit less. But what really held this game together was the fact that it was a linear experience. It wasn't like a Metroidvania like the other Castlevanias that I've played have been. It was a bit more linear. You were able to abuse save states with the Anniversary Collection, which was nice. I thought that like a lot of the level designs were kind of bland, but there were a couple that stood out, like the rotating room and the clock tower, and there was another one where I forget exactly what it was. But a lot of the levels were just kind of like, okay, you're in a castle and you're going through a hallway or something like that. There's some things that I thought were kind of bland. And then there was one level in particular I thought was very annoying, which was like the sewers. I thought that was the most annoying level ever in existence. But yeah, the pixel artwork's great, the music's great, but I'm not like crazy about the game in general. I'm not crazy about Castlevania in general. I've tried at least 4 games in the Castlevania series now, being the original Castlevania for a couple minutes, Super Castlevania I finished, Symphony of the Night I finished, and Lords of Shadow, which I played last year and I just didn't like. So it's one of those series that I wish that I liked, but I don't. So at this point, I'll probably try and go back and play a couple more in the future, but as of right now, I'm kind of over it. And then the other game that I played was actually a new game that released on the Nintendo Switch Online service for original Game Boy, and that was Donkey Kong Land. Donkey Kong Land is what came out before the Game Boy Color version of Donkey Kong Country came around. And Donkey Kong Country, if you don't know, Donkey Kong Country is more of a one-for-one, kind of port of Donkey Kong Country. And Donkey Kong Land came out on the original Game Boy, which means that it's not exactly Donkey Kong Country, but it's Donkey Kong Country coded. They couldn't put in, of course, the impressive sprite work and the music and the level design from the Donkey Kong Country on the SNES. They had to kind of dumb it down and put it into a smaller package. And what they got was fine. It's not amazing, but it's good. I know it's a bit jumbled there, but I will say, I enjoyed it a lot more than I was expecting to. I think that's interesting to see how they fit this game onto a Game Boy cartridge and how they went from Donkey Kong Country to this game it's very interesting to see. It's a pretty quick playthrough. It took me about an hour and a half to get through. The boss fights were the worst part of the game because a lot of them kind of boiled down to wait for the guy to throw something and then hit him on the head. There was one boss fight with a clam that I thought was kind of interesting where the thing was shooting pearls at you and you had the pearls bounce off of a drum and hit them back. I thought that was at least kind of interesting, but the rest of them were very bland, very boring. The level design was actually pretty good. There's some different ideas in here. Some of them good, some of them not good. That separated itself from Donkey Kong Country. But in general, it is just like a dumbed down, it's Donkey Kong. It's like your mom saying we have Donkey Kong Country at home and it's Donkey Kong Land, right? I wouldn't say that about the Game Boy Color version of Donkey Kong Country because that version is actually very good. It's actually pretty much a one-for-one redo of the SNES game. But this game is a dumbed-down version of Donkey Kong Country. It's different than Donkey Kong Country. That's why it's called Donkey Kong Land, of course. And there were 3 games in the series for this one, so I do hope that they bring the other 2 over, because after playing through all of them during Donkey Kong December a few years ago, it would be very interesting to play through the dumbed-down but different version of it. Even though it's kind of got the same ideas and concepts, there's different levels, different mechanics, and different things littered throughout that sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. The one thing that doesn't work is this platform that you jump to change direction. And it's just it was a very annoying section. I got stuck on one level for a little bit. But one thing that does work is there's these new barrels that you press buttons to make things shoot out of them. I mean, I thought that was kind of good. So yeah, if you want to check it out, it is available on the Game Boy version of the Nintendo Switch Online service. I think it's definitely worth a playthrough if you like Donkey Kong. If you don't, then probably stay away because it's not the best thing ever, but it's decent at least. So there you go, Donkey Kong Land. All right, thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. Let's go ahead and move on to everyone's favorite part, the Guess That Song. If you know the song's name and the game that it came from, let me know in the comments below or in the Discord. If you know the song name and the game that came from, if you comment below, I'll give you a heart and a congratulations. If you comment on Spotify, I can't really do much, but I'll give you a thumbs up in my mind. And if you comment on Discord and the Ferret 64 section, I will give you a super reaction. Let's go ahead and listen to this to today's song right now. Once again, thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. Really do appreciate that. If you want to check out anything else I do, it's all at YemmytheFerret, whether it be on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube VODs channel, YemmytheFerret VODs. I also have a Blue Sky account and a Threads account if you want to follow me on there. I also do football recaps on Ferret Football on YouTube if you want to check those out. I do weekly recaps of the games that I have something to say about. They've been pretty fun to make. We're into week 12 now, which is pretty crazy. Also, I do a podcast called Film Freaks with a Z at the end where we talk about movies. Latest episode about Starship Troopers. The next episode next week is about Muppet Treasure Island. If you want to check that out, that'll be next week's episode. And then we also stream on Twitch Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. We're going to finish up Ratchet & Clank Up Your Arsenal on Monday. And then we'll be moving on to Star Wars Starfighter on Tuesday, if you want to check that out. All right, folks, thank you so much for watching and or listening to this episode of the podcast. I appreciate you very much. I am YemmytheFerret, and I'm out of here. So long.
The Ferret 64 podcast is owned and edited by YemmytheFerret. Small sound clips used throughout the podcast were made by YemmytheFerret. The song in the intro and outro is Nightshade by Adhesive Wombat. The Ferret 64 logo was made by Player2P2. News sources include PushSquare.com, NintendoLife.com, and PureXbox.com. All opinions, video game related, are my own. Thank you for listening.